Welcome to chapter 16 on the book of Isaiah. Chapter 15 was more of a geography lesson with all the different cities in Moab. And again, I'll bring up the map here. You can see that Moab was on the eastern side of the Dead Sea, with Dibon, its capital, right here. And the Arnon River was right in the middle. The northern part was Heshbon, and down south at the bottom of the Dead Sea. This country existed in early times of the Judges through Hezekiah, probably because of the mention in the last verse of this chapter of 3 years later they were destroyed. And so at the latest could have been with Hezekiah, because Isaiah could be, the prophecy could be for the future, I suppose. So let's go into the chapter now. And before we go in there, a few things I need to go through here. One, as I mentioned in the last chapter, that there was none of the tribes had given land in the land of Moab, but I think I was wrong as I looked on the map and I saw that Reuben, the tribe of Reuben, came down to the Arnon River, but south of the Arnon there was no tribe. And apparently that's what I was looking at on the map earlier, so that was wrong. And then, as we mentioned, Moab appears earlier with in Baal Peor, a city there was someplace in Moab, where as Israel was leaving Egypt, when it came up and around to Baal Peor, the daughters of Moab seduced many of the Israelites in the sexual type of worshiping of their god Chemosh, and this was found in Numbers 25. And then, as they did go in to this area, they actually bypassed Moab, except for the Baal Peor part of it, and that might have been actually outside of Moab to the north. In Judges 11:18, it has a story about how they went by Moab rather than attacking it. Excuse me. Moab today is a part of the country of Jordan, and in Daniel 11:41, it mentions how Edom, Moab, and Ammon, Edom is south, then Moab and Ammon are spared by the beast. So as Moab ceased to exist, Daniel still used those countries for a future attack of the beast in the end times, and using Moab, and that would be Jordan today. Moab is spoken against by the prophets Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Amos, and Zephaniah. They all spoke against and had things saying against Moab. You can go into a lexicon and find Moab and where these were. Then later in Gedaliah, the governor of Israel, after the taking of Nebuchadnezzar's taking of the king and so forth, that mentions Moab raiders entering into Judah. And Moab is still mentioned even after the Babylonian captivity. In Nehemiah 13:23, Nehemiah, who came back to the city of Jerusalem, mentions, and he says, "And in those days I saw the Jews who settled with wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and Moab." And this intermarriage of the Jews during this period of time is dealt with in Ezra chapter 9. So now we'll go down into our text. It says, "I will send a male lamb larding over the land." "I will send" would be God. And a male lamb, I'm not sure, it doesn't say who that would be. To me, it would probably be the king of Judah, because it says, "Is not 3 the mountain of the daughter of Zion, a desolate rock. For you shall be as a young winged creature flying about, being removed. That's like fluttering. O daughter of Moab. And thereupon, O Arnon, which was that river that went into the Dead Sea, much counsel, and, and also always make a protection for her mourning. They flee at midday, darkness at midday. They are startled. You should not celebrate. It's now exactly how Moab was taken out and defeated here. I don't see it in the Bible anywhere where it mentions how that happened, but here Isaiah's prophesying how this will happen. The exiles of Moab shall sojourn with you. They will be a protection to you from the face of one pursuing. Now, it could possibly be talking about Sennacherib coming. It could be later with Nebuchadnezzar and people taken from Moab by both of these kings and going with the children of Israel, sons of Israel. For your alliance in war was lifted away, and the trampling ruler perished from the earth, whoever that was. And it's interesting that I question, well, why would Isaiah even care, or why would God care about Moab? They're not the children of Israel, they're neighbors, and finding these faults with them. I mean, there's people doing these things all over the world, so why pick on Moab? Well, he didn't just pick on Moab. We also find Ammon and Damascus, Syria, all the neighbors of Israel that are brought out by God as disobeying the relationship to Israel and hurting it, coming at war with them and being at their throats all the time, and as they still are today in 2017. But I started thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, the Christians are also neighbors to the Jews. We have the Jewish tradition, the history. We're not Jews, but yet we love the Word of God, and we should be loving the Jewish believers, not the ones necessarily that are trampling the Lord Jesus Christ, but we do have a special relationship, and if we are doing things that are wrong and hurting God and His purpose, then I'm sure that we could be trampled upon also. And I think about that when I go through here, and I don't want to become a Jew basher, somebody that's considered anti-Semitic, because I really don't feel that. I really want the Jews to come to Jesus Christ. But the problem is that they don't really love Jesus Christ. Most of them don't. And they have no problem of trampling on His name. So that angers the Christians. And so Christians and the Jews have been at each other's throats for thousands of years. But we need to consider it and not just jump out at Jews because they are Jewish and because of these problems, just as the Moabites had problems with Israel and other people around. The Jews were taken away from their land, taken back, and so forth. This is all being done by God, Jehovah, Jesus, and we need to flex ourselves. I heard it once said that the flexible will not be broken, and the Jews, we should have a place in our heart for them if they want to know about Jesus. So these Moabites that are the neighbors are being singled out. And it says, a throne shall be set right with mercy, and one shall sit upon it with truth in the tent of David, judging and inquiring of equity and hastening righteousness. To me, that's Jesus. I just don't see where anything else that would fit. And it's all of a sudden it just appears in the middle of this condemnation of Moab. But this was the way the prophets did things. These prophecies just appear, and in the New Testament we're told, oh, this is a prophecy of this and this is another prophecy of that. And Jesus very well may have explained how these were. But they're certainly not something that you would see from the context necessarily. And the one example would be Rachel crying for her children because there were no more, and that was used for Herod killing the male children under 3 years old. And it was in the book of Jeremiah. Now, how would you know that this has to do with some Roman, which it was hundreds of years before? So here, I believe, is one of these types of instances where God is showing the future. And to me, a throne shall be set right with mercy, with Jesus is merciful for sure. And one shall sit upon it with truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In the tent of David, he is of the lineage of David. He's a judge, judging the people and inquiring of equity. He saw, was Andrew coming towards him, a man with no guile, and hastening righteousness, and he's bringing righteousness into the world. And then it goes and changes back to Moab. We heard the insult of Moab, insulting exceedingly. So this is what Moab did. They insulted. And the pride in his insult and his vehement anger. No, not so your divination. They didn't really understand. They just struck out against Israel. Now, it's the same thing. I go back to, we should not be just attacking Israel and Jews and insulting them for no reason. If they are doing things that are against Christ, then bringing that out and showing is the right thing to do. But to lob the whole thing into the Jews are, these terrible people, and make fun of them in certain things like the Nazis did, and treat them like that, is just not anything God would want. And he would not be pleased if we did do that. So we need to watch ourselves. Verse 7, Moab shall shriek. For in the land of Moab all shall shriek. But among the ones dwelling, Seth, you shall meditate upon, and you shall not be ashamed. That's talking about the Jews, I'm pretty sure, because Seth, who was Seth? Seth was the son of Adam. Interesting, it says in Genesis 5:3, and he procreated a son according to his shape, and that's Adam, and according to his image, and he named his name Seth. And now this in Genesis 5 is the lineage of Adam. The Eve is not mentioned, nor Cain, nor Abel, but it does mention that Seth was according to his shape and according to his image. So were Adam and Eve some other types of being, and Cain and Abel and the giants of the day? I don't know, but it does have that. I thought I'd bring it out because I found that very interesting when I studied Seth. So Seth is the son of Adam, and he lived 912 years. And Seth is in the genealogy of Jesus in Luke 3. But again, if you go there, you will not find Cain and Abel. You'll just find Adam and then Seth being the son. So then, and then it goes down to Noah, and I would assume that it goes down into as it goes through in the lineage of Jesus. So here it's this Seth dwelling, the Jews. The plains of Heshbon shall mourn. Heshbon, as I showed you on that map, was at the very top of Moab. The grapevine of Sibmah swallowing down the nations. So I'm not exactly sure how the Sibmah is a little small town in Moab, in its grapevine swallowing down the nations, but trample her grapevines unto Jazer. So maybe the translation is the plains of Heshbon shall mourn, the grapevine of Sibmah being swallowed down the nations. I'm not sure, but trample her grapevines unto Jazer, which was fairly close south, I believe, of Heshbon. And now we go into these 8th, 9th, and 10th verses, and there's all kinds of things about the grapevine. So they must have had a lot of vineyards in this area. In no way shall you join together. Wander the wilderness. The one being sent from her were abandoned ones, for they passed over the sea. Now, I don't know what that's referring to there from the people in Moab going over the sea, the Red Sea, or the Dead Sea. It doesn't say. On account of this I shall weep, as the one weeping Jazer, the grapevine of Sibmah. It cast down your trees, O Heshbon and Lelah. They're both in the northern part of Moab. For upon the harvest and upon the gathering of your crops I shall trample, and all shall fail. So here we see the end of Moab coming. And gladness and the leap for joy shall be lifted away from out of the vineyards, and that's the vineyards of Sibmah up north. And in your vineyards, and in no way shall they be glad, and in no way shall they tread wine in the wine vats, for has been ceased. It has been ceased, and the vintage has been ceased. I put that in there. That's what I'm assuming it's talking about. Could be for Moab has ceased, has been ceased. On account of this, my belly shall sound as a harp for Moab, and you renewed the things within me as a wall. Well, this is to me is a strange thing. I'm not exactly sure if it's a positive thing. That a harp could sound really nice, or it could be like a dirge. I don't know, within his belly, and you renewed the things within me as a wall. Well, put something up. I just don't understand. I have a hard time with the 11th chapter. The negativity of it could very well be because in 12 it does go into the negative. And it shall be for you a feeling of shame, I guess, this wall, for Moab tired upon the shrines. And that was Molech. And they had worshipped Molech, and one king even sacrificed his son, a Moabite king, to no, I'm sorry, not Molech. Yeah, I think it was Molech. And then Chemosh were the gods of Moab. King sacrificed his son on the wall. So that he shall enter unto the handmaid things of hers, so as to pray. And in no way should they be able to rescue her. I suppose that would be Moab. This is the saying which the Lord spoke against Moab. And now the Lord spoke, saying, in 3 years of the years of a hireling, the glory of Moab shall be dishonored in all the much richness, and very few shall be left behind, and not the important. Now, 3 years at the time Isaiah is writing that. If it was, then the latest would have been during Hezekiah, because that's the last king that Isaiah mentions living during that reign. If it was in the future, then we really don't know. But as we mentioned, there were still Moabites around even after Nebuchadnezzar took the peoples, and Moabites were attacking Judah and so forth. So we don't know. But one thing is interesting is that the word Moab, as far as I see, and I looked, and that does not appear anywhere in the New Testament. So the end of these people, end of chapter 16, beginning of 16, the end of the glory of Jacob. So now we go into this next part in chapter 17. I hope you'll join us in chapter 17 as we go through the book of Isaiah. And God bless.